Time to roll with a wholesome one here at the Voice of College Football. Let's do it. Miami Hurricanes live for a 135th time, and you see it in the background there. Let's bring him up front. It's the wholesome one. You can catch him right here on YouTube several times a week on live streams and videos breaking down the Canes. Wholesome one, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's always a great day to be a Cane.
All right, we're in the middle of spring practice, of course. We invite everyone to leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics, whatever you've got concerning Miami Hurricanes football. Leave it in the live chat. I will pass it on to the wholesome one, and I will address it myself as well if I've got an opinion on the topic. So ultimately, you know the deal. You produce the show. If you really want to, you guys produce the show. But if you don't want to, the wholesome one and I we'll talk it up for the next hour. No doubt about that. All right. We were talking about before we started to record here, wholesome one. We were talking about spring standouts. Who are those guys that, based on the information we're getting, based on some of the video we're seeing, and hopefully we've got the wholesome one here. Those guys that are standing out again, based on what we know. Wholesome one, you got us? Can you hear us?
Might even be a delay. I don't know, but yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
All right.
Did you get my question?
If push comes to shove, I'll just switch to my phone. Yeah, I heard your question.
Okay. Go to it. Hey, wholesome one, if you can hear me, you may want to click out and come back in, or click out and use your phone, either one, because, yeah, we're on a serious delay. Now we lost you. So hopefully we'll get the wholesome one back. Let me jump in the live chat. Of course, you know what the deal is here. We talk Miami football on a regular basis here at the Voice of College Football. Want to remind everyone to use Amazon. I probably don't need to remind you to use Amazon. It's use the link in the description section of the videos to help us build the channel. And it's the same shopping experience for you. So we have provided a way for you to help us build the channel, but shop Amazon using the same approach that you already use. Mr. HD's on the line. Good to see you as always. Hashtag Live Squad. Malik Savage, Buckeyes fan here. We apologize for the rough start to the show, but again, we're here live. I counted over five and a half hours of live coverage here at the Voice of College Football yesterday. So these things are going to happen. It's part of the deal. Part of the deal. Good to see Long Live the King. Malik Savage on the line. Shane, good to see you as well. Justin Fields joining us in between Combine and Pro Day workouts. Very good. Shane, question. Here it is. Will Avante have a significant role this season, considering how he's balling this offseason? And that was something that the wholesome one and myself were discussing before we went live. So he was going to address that. I'm looking for him to have a great freshman year for us as one of our potential best players on defense. We'll get to Avante Williams, and the wholesome one certainly had some things to say there. Wholesome one, how we doing?
All right. Can you hear me now? Am I good?
I got you. You're moving and everything. All right.
Let's go. All right. Here we go. We're back on. Like I said, I got some. I had some new Wi-Fi put in because I had to upgrade with all this technology and Zooms every morning. I had to update, and I guess it's taking a while to sink in. So I hop on my phone and let's go from there. So the Miami Hurricanes have a couple of young men who have been standing out in spring ball. It's nice to be able to hear some consistency in the names, because it's like, all right, well, one guy has a sporadic good day and then he goes missing for 5 days. this guy has a couple 2 days and he goes missing for the rest of the spring. No, we've been hearing about two particular names almost every single time, whether it's a coach or a player who hops in front of the camera, and that's Xavier Restrepo and Avante Williams. They have been jumping off of the screen in production, jumping off of the screen in their preparation. A lot of little things that you love to hear, as a fan, what you like to hear, and as a coach even more. It's just the little things. Please get them off of the. Yeah, pick another comment. We don't acknowledge them. I don't.
The voice of college football, Holsum One. I acknowledge everyone.
Mark, I love you. But on our time, they can go back to, like I said, Mark, they're no longer even in the big three. It's Miami, UCF, and Florida. So we'll figure it out. Anyway, back to the real school in Florida. The little things, like the details, the effort is one thing. Obviously, if a young man gets a Division I scholarship to a Power 5 institution, they're going to give effort. They have some talent, okay, and a certain level of football IQ. There's just certain things. But when you stand above that at a young age, it's a really big indicator as to what you could have moving forward in a program. And if you continue to bring in prospects and young men who exude those every year. I mean, the class of 2020, there was the class of dogs. It wasn't really a big time prospects, but it was really those hard-working 3 stars and low 4 stars that you want in the program. Then 2021 comes around, and now Miami gets those a little bit higher 4 stars and a couple 5 stars who have that same effort and tenacity in them. That's what you want to start filling your locker room with. And you also want to fill the locker room with people who know how to freaking win. You want to have a team full of people who have won at the high school level. You want to be able to go into those big-time high school programs and have those young men take you seriously. And not only just do that, commit to you and sign with you. Because if you start filling up a team full of people who maybe lost 1 or 2 games in their high school career, they're going to have that type of work ethic, that type of nature added to your program. And you start stacking class on top of class on top of class of people who think that way, and then the coaching becomes easy at that point. Because all you have to do is just blow that whistle and they go out there and tear it up because it's a part of the program. And 2 people who exude that mindset is Xavier Restrepo and Avante Williams with what they've been bringing to the table. They both were on teams who they were the guy and kind of was a reason why those teams were doing well or made big time leaps into the playoffs. You look at Xavier Restrepo, he was at Deerfield. They're pretty good. He was high school teammates with Knighton at Deerfield. And he also spent some time at St. Thomas Aquinas before he transferred. He played safety and wide receiver. They needed a big play through the air. They went to him. He had to go make a big time interception. Xavier Restrepo went ahead and did that. You look at Avante Williams. He's a free safety, corner, wide receiver, running back. They needed a big play in his small town kind of place. He made all the plays. You continue to build that. You start to be able to filter out the leaders amongst other leaders. Man amongst men. That type of thing. And when you start filling a team like that, where you can look to these young 19, 20-year-olds, and even the 23-year-olds can say, you know what, I can hand this baton off as I head on to other endeavors, and I know that it's going to be in good hands, and maybe even in better hands. And it's a little early to speak that far into their careers here at Miami, but just the little details. I really love what I'm hearing.
Folks, get your Canes mask. You can do that at voiceofcollegefootball.com. Voiceofcollegefootball.com. Go to the top of the screen. It says register for free. And you know what you do there? You register for free. And you get your free Canes mask. Holsum One. So we know, obviously, for any particular team, their season ends sometime in December, 1st of January. Everybody is involved with and knows about spring practice, but there are workouts between the end of the season and spring practice. Similarly, the next big time in which the entire team's together is that first week of August. It's right around August 1st that the team gets together, and we know, okay, it's fall camp. A lot of time between mid-April, when most teams are playing a spring game, and the 1st of August. So give us a feel, since you're right involved in the way the calendar looks for a college football team, what happens between the end of spring practice and the beginning of fall practice? Is each individual also given kind of a rundown of, this is how your spring played out and you need to work on A, B, and C?
Absolutely. That's such a great question, Mark, because I could take it two routes, as a fan route and other route as far as doing it and seeing it. Well, a lot of tough conversations happen after spring, Mark. A lot. Because what happens is you had the early enrollees. Okay, then you have summer session A, summer session B, and then you have the late enrollees. They can't. So there's going to be a wave, an influx of upgrades, because the job of a coach is to recruit over you every single cycle. All right, I'm not going to go, if I got a 5-star back, I'm not just going to take 3 and 2-star backs for the next couple of years to make you feel good. No, I want to fill this room with the best players that I can to force whoever is that elite player to the top. And eventually you are going to move on. So therefore I need people behind you to keep it going. So these tough conversations where you sit down and you have your post-spring wrap-up conversations, and you have it with a position coach. It usually goes in 3 ways: position coach, coordinator, head coach. Or sometimes it's just the head coach. Then you have your private talk with your position coach on the side. It's not really an official thing. But they all have grades. They all have a viewpoint of you as a player. They all have what you can do to help this program and what you can do for yourself as a football player, all in their minds. Okay, when we sit down, we convey these messages and we sit and talk. Sometimes tears are shed. Sometimes it's laughter. Sometimes it's just passion, sometimes it's anger. Okay, it really depends on how this young man that you're speaking to and how they're going to interpret this conversation. But a lot of those tough things, because man, it can go a couple of ways. If you have a tough conversation, let's say you have a young man where you recruited someone who's not really on their level, but you know that they're going to come and push them for certain things, whether it's weight room, whether it's IQ tests, whether it's playbook tests, to where it's like, all right, we took a project player at your position this cycle, but don't get comfortable because it won't always be like that. All right. And that player can get comfortable and say, you know what, whatever. Or as soon as they leave that meeting, that player can head to the weight room. As soon as they leave that meeting, that player can go and hit the field in these practice indoor facilities and get into it and get it going. One of the other beautiful things is when the young man sits down and they absorb everything you have, and then their response to it is, okay, well, how can I change that viewpoint? How can I make myself better, coach? What am I not doing? What are some of the things you need to see off the football field for on the football field success? Because some of those things do correlate. Obviously, if I see your transcripts, you got 2.3 GPA, and I know you're way higher than that. That shows that you're not putting the level of importance that you need in everything in life. So I need you to up that. And when you do that, it's also going to help you on this football field, because your attention to detail and what you really want to get done and learning, prioritizing, man, it'll take you to a different level. So those type of conversations do happen too. And sometimes you sit down and you're talking to the big time defensive tackle who is probably going to be a top 20 pick. And the main thing you're telling him is, please don't do anything stupid. Please don't have the head coach calling me or having your fellow players calling me, come pick you up from the bar because you just gotten into a bar fight. And now I have to beg the media not to put it out to the local news. All right? Don't get in any trouble with your girlfriend. I need you to keep your clean nose. I need you to keep training. I need you to make sure you're staying healthy. Don't be out there playing basketball and tear ACL. All those type of comments. Those things happen too. Sometimes they're pretty easy. Easy peasy. Hey, you know you're big time. I know you're big time. There's a little couple things we can add to you and make you even better. But I need you to not mess this up for the next 8 months. I need you to keep it clear head. And Mark, one of the toughest ones is when you're basically talking to a bubble guy. Okay, you're talking to a young man where you've over recruited them. They're a red shirt, junior, senior, somewhere in there, going into their last time really contributing to your football program. And you have to look them in the eyes, and it's tough because you could honestly feel like you failed them. You could honestly feel as though you could have done more to help them. And you still know deep down inside that they may not have done everything, but it's still on you. You're the adult in the situation. You're the coach. All you can hope is that whatever is said here, they can take that. And for the next 8 to 12 weeks before you see them again officially a part of football program, that they have been putting all type of work in and reshape that body, reshape that mindset, and are ready to really go out there and change things for the better of them as a football player. But it can be good, it can be bad. And most of the time it's somewhere in the middle because depending on the coach, there's always something. You know, we've all had managers like that where they just find something wrong. They find something to complain about, and there's coaches out there like that too. There's coordinators and who are like that also. But when it comes to Miami, I think a lot of the latter happened with a lot of our older players. I think some of them got pulled aside and will be getting pulled aside. I don't know if they're going to be handed transfer portal papers to fill out, but they're going to have that conversation where we're not holding back and you haven't lived up. So pick a route here. Pick a route here.
Got 25,000 subscribers, and I'm very appreciative of that. And there are people in fan bases. You could go to Purdue, you could go to Maryland. There, I've got very, very what would be considered lower level programs in the grand scheme of things that have fans that tremendous in their support for me. But as a whole, there's no question that the Miami fan base supports me like nobody else. Nobody else. And here's one guy right here. We know him. Ronan, thank you so much for showing up as you typically do. As you come into the live streams for the other shows and support and lift up the Canes and lift up our channel. So thank you so much for the super chat there, Ronan. Shout out to the hardest working man in the FCS, coaching by day, talking Canes by night. Head on over and support Mark on Patreon. Thank you there, Ronan. Yeah, you can catch us on Patreon. The links in the description section in any of the videos, or just go to Patreon, search Mark Rogers TV, $5 a month, 16 cents a day. Keep up the great work, gentlemen. Go Canes. And here we have Gold and Blue Dude. I'd love to do a show with you sometime, Mr. Rogers. I have somebody almost every day either send me a comment to YouTube or hit me up, usually on DM on Twitter, and say, can I do a show with you? And my response is typically, send me a link. Let me see what you can do. I'm just not allowing people just to show up and do shows.
I remember you did something like that at one point where instead of doing call-in for a while, you did like you would have people in my spot here, and I think it was an off-season thing you did last year just to see how it went, right?
Yeah, and we actually do that on Patreon. Exclusive live streams, and they can come up on Patreon, just like you are, and we might have 4 or 5 of us kicking things around, and it's fun. Absolutely. But Gold and Blue Dude, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. And absolutely, not that I'm going to guarantee that you're going to do a show with me, but contact me at markrogerstv@gmail.com. We'll take it from there. Try to catch every live show, no matter what team you're talking about. So thank you so much for that, Gold and Blue Dude.
I'm thinking he has to be a Pitt fan or a Notre Dame guy. Probably Pitt with that high gold.
Oh, you're going to go with Pitt. And I always thought it was Notre Dame.
It could. Well, Notre Dame has that darker gold to it. You know, like a bronzish gold. It looks like that logo is a Pit Panther, uh, like old gold look to it.
Okay. Could be. We got BGPO Football Funk, Steelers Clemson fan chiming in, East Carolina grad, a bit of a comment back and forth about East Carolina and Florida State last night, asking us about Miami possibly beating Alabama.
Man, Miami has so many of their own issues to deal with. To answer your question, I would say no. But I think there is context to that. Yes, Alabama is losing a lot. Okay, yes, Alabama is putting in a brand new office, which is nothing eerily similar to the Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian spread that they've been running for the last 8 seasons, as I've been paying great attention to this amazing program for the better part of a decade. It'll be a little different, a little bit more pro style, probably a little bit more to what Coach Saban has wanted at Alabama until it started rolling. West Virginia.
It's West Virginia. Okay.
I can't really clown them. I think we're on the same level. I can't really say much about West Virginia. I think we're all kind of.
That's very gracious of you, because certainly all time you're not, but as it stands right this second, pretty much.
Yeah. I think we probably would be favored by maybe a field goal, maybe 4 points if we played them, something like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I like to be I don't like saying realist, but someone who lives in the moment. I understand where we are as a program. You can't keep swinging the 2001, 86, 83. It's like, no, man. Eventually, those teams were those teams. And the beautiful part about programs who kind of get out of their own way is they do that right there. They realize whatever in the past, good or bad, what matters is today and tomorrow. That's it.
Absolutely. And unless I get some questions in here we go. We got Ronan chiming in, because I was actually going to go to the past with some fun questions. But
I would love that. Sure.
As you guys produce the show, we will go with your questions. So, Holsum, one quick question from Ronan. I think you've touched on this before. In your opinion, who had the better season for Miami? Jalen Phillips, Gregory Rousseau? I know Greg's stats stand out, but curious for your thoughts. And obviously, we're comparing, let's see, a 13-game season versus 11 games. So the stats, you get 2 more games for Rousseau.
That's a great one.
Didn't Rousseau have a more consistent season?
No. Jalen Phillips had a way. If you want to go with consistent from game 1 through the end of this year, because once the film got out on Greg, he didn't really register stats that second half of the season. Believe it or not, he played against FIU. Believe it or not, he played against La Tech and registered 1 TFL in both those games. Not 1 each, 1 total in 8 quarters versus group of 5 teams. He didn't show up. Once the film kind of got out on him, he didn't really, Anyway, I'm not really here to bash him because he's a cane. I would say Phillips, man. I honestly, yes, Greg's 15.5 sacks, 18 TFL, so that was huge. But Phillips did it on so many. I mean, Clemson game, he made some really nice plays, got the sack on the first overall pick. He was in that game, made plays. They both had really good games against subpar Virginia Tech teams. They both had really good games against subpar Virginia teams. But Phillips was every single, like the latter half of that season, once the film still was out on him, he still kept making plays, man. He still kept
Falcon
making
plays. Falcon ERX likes Rousseau in that comparison. And we got a super sticker coming in from Falcon ERX. Falcon ERX, thank you so much for that. Falcon ERX is here on a consistent basis. And Mr. Rubicon is backing up the Holsum one. More consistent from Jalen Phillips.
That's like one of my best friends right there.
Here's an off-season series of questions for you, Holsum one. Even though we're in the middle of spring practice, and again, folks, pour in the questions because we want to talk what's going on right this second. But I think these are fun questions. So, since you've been a fan, since you've watched Miami football, I'm going to go with number one. Who's your favorite player all time?
First off, happy birthday to the greatest safety to ever play this game, Sean Taylor. Today is his birthday. My favorite king. That's tough, man. I got family ties to one of them, and he was obviously I became the big dude, so I can play the receiver. Number one. I grew up watching Spence. DP. I'm gonna have to say Denzel Perryman, man. I'm gonna have to say Denzel Perryman. I know he's not a name that amongst some of these elites, but for me personally, someone who I met, I shook his hand, and we stood toe to toe, eye to eye, and it gave me hope as a high school junior, where this guy was at Miami at the time, and he's playing D1 ball, so it gave me a chance to feel as though I could do it. As a 5'11" dude, man, it made me feel so blessed that a guy I watched at Coral Gables is now playing at Miami, and then he played very, very well at Miami and still now doing things pretty well in the NFL and going into his 8th season. So, I'm going to have to say DP 5'2", El Presidente, the president. Okay, Denzel Perryman is my favorite Kane of all time.
And that's what makes it a fun question, is because there's not a right or wrong. It can't be debated. If that's your favorite, that's your favorite. You're not arguing he's the best or anything like that. It's just, for whatever reason, most people gravitate to a certain guy because of his flair, because of his position, because he was maybe the guy when they first started watching or whatever it is. And it's just a fun question. Who's your favorite player? And you guys can certainly leave your comments in the comment section of who your favorite Kane is. Who's your favorite Kane right now?
Light Skin Warrior Bubba Bolden. I gotta go with the infamous nickname that was put on that I made on my channel one night. Mark, did I ever tell you the story of this, Mark?
Of Light Skin Warrior?
Yeah.
Tell it again.
All right, so we're sitting there, it's like a little over a year ago, sitting there talking about the kid. This was at the old house. When I was in the kitchen, everybody would make fun of me for that. I had the flag and cabinets, and I had to cover that with the flag so people didn't know I was in the kitchen and doing lives for 4 or 5 hours. Anyway, there was this comment about Bubba Bolden, and someone called them cookies and cream. And I was like, what? I'm not going to call another male cookies and cream. So it just clicked in my head. He is a biracial dude. He's light skinned. He's from the West Coast, and the Warriors, the basketball team, they're the 3-point shooter guys who are biracial, light skinned guys, light skinned Warrior. Boom! It went, and then it took off. People would refer to him as that all the time in the comments section. It's kind of like the hashtag Live Squad, hashtag Rewatch Squad, to where it started and then it just built a life of its own, and it's matriculated to all these other channels, and it's a blessing. It's not one of them where I have to bang the door down like I created this. It's just known. It's a thing. It's out there, and I really like it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to say 21. Number 1 in my heart, number 21 for the Miami Hurricanes, Light Skin Warrior Bubba Bolden.
That's great. We got John Sarian chiming in. What are the 2 top things that you're expecting to see in the Canes spring game? Curious to see if guys other than Harley Pope touch the ball. So that's his focus, to see who gets targeted and performs in the spring game at wide receiver. So what are you looking out for? What's going to be most important to you?
Cohesiveness on the offensive line. Can we move people with the influx of Jalen Rivers, 4-star offensive tackle now turned guard for the Miami Hurricanes at the left side? At the right side, 5-star offensive tackle turned right guard, Navon Donaldson. These two are influx into the Miami Hurricanes offensive line. One is 6'6", 331 pounds right now. The other is 6'5", 360 pounds. We have not had that size in the interior since 2019, where we have someone that can move people out of the freaking way. Okay, we had 301-pound build, 301, so he probably was like 295. DJ Scaife, and then we had the youngster Ja'Kai Clark, who was forced to have to come on and give us early reps as a freshman last year because we didn't have anybody else, and he earned this opportunity, of course, but we had no one else. So now we're going to be bringing in a younger player in Jalen Rivers, yes, but he's not so light in the behind. All right, and he has the length to be going up against these bigger defensive tackles that we're starting to face in the ACC Coastal and that we're going to face in Alabama and Atlanta. All right, and Navon is a former freshman All-American. So I'm looking for that cohesive unity on the offensive line in the run game in particular, number one. Number two, what I'm looking for in the team, or I want to see the influx of Coach Dave Feely, Coach Bellamy, and what they've been doing in the strength conditioning and nutrition side of things. I want to see how our players look. You know, do they go hard for a couple plays and then look like they're sucking air? Or can they go out there and give us a really good game and it looks like they're prepared, we're programmed, we're returning a whole bunch of defensive snaps and offensive snaps. Almost the whole team comes back. All right. Can this team be more of a program when they go out there as opposed to just a football team? Can it be a well-oiled machine? Now, Coach Rhett Lashley, his offensive staff, has had a whole calendar year to be able to put their offense together. They did it over Zoom and, 6 feet apart meetings for the first season. Now you're going to be able to build on that, plus bring on, 10? Because all you lose is Brevin and De'Aaron King due to injury. So 9 of the 11 starters are going to be back in the same offense with the same coaches speaking the same verbiage, which has not happened at Miami in a while. Okay, on the offensive side of the ball, the last person to give us 2 back-to-back seasons as an OC was, Mark Richt, James Coley in 14-15. All right, so actually 13, 14, 15. So even though it happened to be a second QB that second go around, statistically we were way better team 15. We just didn't win the game. But that's what I'm looking for, Mark. This offensive line as a unit, strength and conditioning influx on the team as a whole, and are we a well-oiled machine building a program? Are they out there looking like they know what they're supposed to do? If there's a motion with the wide receiver, are our DBs going ballistic, or are they just communicating, giving each other the hand signal, and we're going to run a defense? Hey, if they motion over, it's still cover 3. It's still cover 3. All right, cool. I want you to make sure you deep thirds corner. I'm coming out of the fast if I'm the strong safety. My weak side linebacker is doing the exact same thing. And my free safety, I want you to go back to the hole player in the middle of the field. Deep thirds. That's it. I don't care where they roll. And let's make sure we communicate that they are motioning, but let's not get out of whack here. And if we're in man, you better make it a beeline to get to the other side of the field because that's your guy. That's what I want to see.
You mentioned the name Mark Richt connected with the offense, and I don't want to dive too deeply in this, but it just flashed through my mind that what happens to a guy in a situation like that? I'm going to make a lot of guesses and conjecture here a little bit. So he ran the offense at Florida State. He was one of the best in the business at that point. I got to think, when you're a successful offensive mind, and then you're a head coach, then you transition and become one of the better head coaches, and you're leading a top 5 to 10 program. And Georgia was not that prior to Mark Richt, so he did a great job at Georgia. That while most guys running offenses across the country are just offensive coordinators, and they're going to camps, they're going to seminars, they're constantly working their craft and getting better and staying up to date. If you're this head coach that's had a certain level of success, high level of success, and you're comfortable with what you do, and you're spending most of your time being a face, having to meet with administrators and media constantly and do other things.
He did a great job with that.
And not working your craft, then that's probably what happens. You don't stay updated.
I love the person, Mark Richt. I think he would have been probably a really nice chief of staff, somebody that could be hands off and just meet with donors and shake hands and kiss babies and talk about the Lord and his grandkids. I think he would have done an amazing job as a chief of staff at Miami. I tell you what, Mark, I was hesitant to say when he won that natty up in Tallahassee, should have came to be the Miami Hurricanes OC. We should have tried to pull him down here to have him be the coach in waiting. I know the timing would have been bad because Coach Davis, Butch Davis was still our head coach, 99, 2000. He left after 2000. And Mark Richt's first season at Georgia was 2000. So the timing would have been right. No. Because he played the 2000 season, and then he left in 2001 after the bowl game versus Florida, which would have been the February time of 2001. Okay, so it would have been 1 year off. But either way, I think if he would have built what he built at Georgia, at Miami, things would have been so different in this program. But who knows? Who knows if he would have even been the coach that he was, because you got the money, you have the influx, you got the buy-in. He had some really good players that he came into there. Because I think year 2, they were already rolling at 10 wins or so, right? So it was a really nice team.
13-1 his second year, 02.
Exactly. And he's a coach I would love to sit and drink coffee with one day and shake hands and get to know him as a person. I think you saw what he could have been here in 16, 17. But late 17, 18, he started to realize the game had kind of passed him by. And I don't know if he was willing to deal with because at Georgia, they love you to a certain extent. You come on and they still see you down there. Oh, that's Coach Richt down there at church. We love you. We're Bible Belt State. We still love you. You come down to Coral Gables, that stuff ain't gonna help settle this fiery fan base if things are not done right in our program. So I love Mark Richt. I just wish things would have been so much better for him. I think that's when I got into YouTube, 2018. Going after the 2017 season is when I started. So he was a coach that I started with, and it didn't go too well. This
is what I don't get, because if you're a top offensive or defensive mind, I'll take Bo Pelini for example. He ran top level defenses at LSU. Maybe the game, I'm not going to judge him completely, but his last stint here at LSU was not pretty. He just got fired. And the game is much different in 2020 than it was in 2005, 6, 7, 8, especially in the SEC. So maybe the game has passed him by, but that's his calling card. Richt, was an offensive coordinator, but that was a long time ago that he was developing offenses and on top of his game there. You would think that he's great as a CEO type head coach. You would think if he realized that, then you go get a great offensive line and you keep doing what you do best and you could keep that thing going, because like you say, in 16, 17, it looked like it was headed up.
We started to be on everybody's, late 2019 playoff board. Like, Miami is building. We went from 9 to 10 Now you start pushing 11, 12. Like if he was able to replicate what he did at Georgia, that steady climb, we could beat a dead horse with that one, man.
Yeah,
I think the cat was out of the bag. Wisconsin, Pitt took our heart, but Wisconsin took our soul. That was not too many teams get an opportunity to play a big time bowl game at home. That was a home game for Miami. Yes, they were forced to have split tickets to the Orange Bowl. But nah, baby, you in Dade County. You are playing in our stadium. To the point where we pulled out the black uniforms, not orange, not green. We pulled out the black. It was so home for the Canes, man. But I just wish, because listening to Brett Kaya and Malik Rozier, he just kept talking about how he had a stranglehold on the offense. He didn't want to hear anybody else's opinions. The only person he ever trusted was Mike Bobo to run his offense. It didn't go together well. If he would have had a guy like Rhett Lashley, I don't know. But I don't know if a coach like Rhett Lashley would have even wanted to coach under Coach Mark Richt. Because that's another thing. People always wonder, why don't this big time OC go get another former OC go get another OC? This big time DC go get another DC. Because guess what? You're dealing with their baby. All right. So when they walk into that room and they don't hear the right verbiage, they don't like the play calling that they're seeing. It's not aggressive. It's not old school enough. It's not running that dang ball enough. It's like, dog, let me do my job. You hired me to do a job. If not, you can call it yourself. So that's also why I think nothing really happened. It's just people didn't want to coach under Coach Richt offensively.
Trent, we appreciate your presence there in the live chat. Trent is asking about something that gets dismissed and not thought about a whole lot in figuring out who's going to play what roles coming up in any season. And he asked about punt and kickoff return, if you've got a feel for who might fill those roles.
There's a couple of young men. It's funny that question comes up. Harley has been someone who's always been back there. Pope has been stripped from punt and kick return, which is good. He gave us too many problems, too many headaches. Not necessarily to give up on the young man, but the writing's on the wall. You can't catch the punt. You can't catch a regular slant. You can't catch it. He's muffed too many of them. Yank. Xavier Restrepo has been back there. Mike Harley has been back there. Rambo from Oklahoma has been back there. And surprisingly, Tyreek Stevenson has been back there. I understand. I may not look the slimmest. Okay, this is a little ways away from my playing days. All right, but I'm sorry. 6'1", 200 plus at punt return. Get out. Now, if we're going back to the days where you got guys like Braxton Berrios back there, where all they do, they don't even field it. They just didn't even give it a chance. They just wave it because you want secure hands. Okay. But special teams is a facet of the game the Miami Hurricanes have forgotten about. Well, if you think about the 90s and 2000s, a facet of the game that made Miami, two teams who were very synonymous and their games were historic because of this, because special teams was still on both sides, Virginia Tech and the Miami Hurricanes. Special teams was going to play a huge part in those matchups, whether it was a kick return, a punt return, a block punt, field goals made or missed. Miami hasn't been on that tilt. I think the last punt return taken back for a touchdown was Jeff Thomas versus Virginia Tech 2018. That's not good. That's not good. Before that, it was DJ Dallas' sophomore season. The year before against Pitt when he took it back. But we hadn't had a special team. Since Duke Johnson, we hadn't had a special teams touchdown before that. Think about that, Mark. What happened to the Miami Hurricanes being able to have a Santana Moss ticket to the house? And we're going to talk about Devin Hester. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame because he's the greatest to ever do that. a Philip Dorsett, a Lamar Miller, a Travis Benjamin, a Duke Johnson who could take it to the house. And usually it was early on in their career. Okay, I may not be able to crack the depth chart as a starting back or wide receiver because I'm 5'10, 5'11, 180 pounds. Coach, put me back there and let me let a guy miss, and I can take it to the house for you. But we haven't been seeing that at Miami, and that really bothers me.
Mr. Rubicon wants to know if the defensive line play as of late has gotten Miami to a place where it's still, or gotten back to being a defensive line factory.
It could be. It could be. You have a question mark of 53 at defensive end. You have the transfer from Tennessee, Mr. Johnson, DeAndre Johnson. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table because he had 6.5 sacks in the SEC. I could only imagine what he could bring. If he could even just give us 6.5 again at the end, I would really like that because I think he'll be a situational pass rusher. I don't think he will be a starter because we have a seniority problem at Miami, and they're going to start 53. So, Mr. Johnson, I hope you're prepared for that. No matter how hard you work, they're going to start 53. So keep working hard because your number will be called eventually. But 53 will go out there on first and second downs. Nasty Silvera, you've seen what he's done. Even you spoke about it. I remember catching one of the lives before, and I think defensive line came up, and you were like, this guy from Miami, he's shown something because me, Cam, and anybody who's been on this year have talked about him for years. But 2020 came, and he actually started to make those plays. And I was really happy to hear you say that because you have a 50-foot, 1,000 view of all these different institutions. So for a defensive tackle at Miami to kind of pop to you, that was really good for you to be able to notice that. Now, John Ford and Jordan Miller, somebody will eventually show up out of those two. They're the two big guys of the group. They're the space eaters, but they haven't shown us much. Now they're getting older in the program. You're talking about a guy who's going to be in year 5 and a young man who's going into year 3. We have to see something. Year 4, 18, 19, 20, 21. Year 4 for Miller. Year 5 for Ford. We got to see something. We have to at this point. Leonard Taylor, 5-star D tackle. That guy doesn't sign to Miami most of the time. He goes to Florida, and he goes on to be a top 20 pick 3 years from now. Okay, but he picked Miami. So he's going to be able to come in and involve for snaps. And it better be happy he wasn't an early enrollee. Because I think he would be in that conversation with Xavier Restrepo, in that conversation with Cam Kitchens, the safety from Miami Northwestern, in the conversation with Avante Williams, because I think he would stand out of something that Miami hasn't seen at D tackle in I don't know how long. I'm not calling him Sapp. I'm not calling him McDougal. I'm not calling him Russell Maryland. I'm not calling them those guys. But the combination of size, length, moves, and speed, I don't know if we've seen that at Miami in a while. Because even Gerald Willis was like 6'2.5", 6'3". You're talking about a guy who's a legit 6'5", a legit 280, 285, who's a 3 technique that can get up the field. With 2 high school interceptions and both of them taken back to the crib for touchdowns. This is an athlete that happens to be a lineman because of his size. So, yeah, I think D-line could be, and that's just D tackle. You have Jabari Harvey, a young man that I'm going to keep bamming down the door. He was my favorite recruit in 2019. I love this film, and he's starting to show up. Mark, if I were to give you a crazy number of body fat percentage, what would you say is just this crazy number for a body fat percentage of a defensive end?
Crazy good number, of course.
Yeah, not crazy bad. Not 30 plus.
Crazy good number. Sometimes
For
I'll hear. I don't hear body fat percent. It's funny because as soon as you bring up body fat, I think of the time that I was tested, and this was like in my late 20s, and I was in much better shape then when I was around 8%. But sometimes you'll hear a crazy figure like 6%. But for a defensive lineman, I'll go with 11%.
6'4", 250 pounds, 4% body.
4%.
4% body fat.
Okay.
Now, remember when I was able to go to a couple of practices a couple years ago, I saw him. And the first thing I came back to say to you, number one, that Gilbert Frierson was amazing in run stop. Him and Romeo Finley were killing it as the two inside linebackers. But the second thing is that Jafari Harvey, as an early enrollee freshman, stood next to 53 who had been here for 3 seasons, and they looked identical. And this young man is going to be a problem. He's 17, going on to 18. This other dude is 22. They should not look the same. And now you know why. Man, this dude's arms. Mark, I'm telling you, number 12 for the Miami Hurricanes. Watch out.
Wow.
Watch out.
That's impressive. That is mighty impressive. Big Show. Good to see you here at the Voice of College Football, covering Miami football. This is edition number 135. So Big Show is a Clemson fan. Welcome all fan bases here. Much respect to the U. Even though they talk smack to us every time we play them, I have high hopes for the U. Please beat Bama. Please, if Clemson can do it, you can. Well, don't know if that's an accurate statement, but they will play. They will play. All right, let's get to our next super chat. Let's see what Falcon ERX, you got anything for us here?
Make sure you, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, God, make sure you capitalize our U, okay? All right. It's not like this. It's not like this. It's not like this. It's like this. And it's capitalized. That guy said the U and it was lowercase.
Yeah.
It's like when you put
Lowercase
the
D.
G.
Yes.
Okay, when you put that big G, we know who you're talking about. Him. Okay, big H, I-M, we know who you're talking about. When you talk about that big U, we know who you're talking about. Okay.
That's true. No doubt. Falcon ERX showing up. Thank you so much for that, sir. Appreciate that. Needing a new Devin Hester. All right. Who else?
I think that's it's such a good conversation, Mark. I'll ask you, historically, is there any other team you think where special teams has played such a big part of their history? Besides Miami and Tech, because they're one of the best plays.
I was just going to say Virginia Tech, of course.
Right, yeah, because we talked about that earlier in the battles, with Beamer Ball versus Don Shula and not Don Shula. What's the running back coach from Miami's name? Oh, Rubicon's going to kill me. I forgot his name.
Who are we talking about?
The Miami Hurricanes running backs coach in the early 2000s. Clinton Portis, Don Solinger. He was also our special teams coordinator. And that's where Miami had that big edge on special teams was under Don Solinger, who was our running back coach. So it was Beamer Ball versus Solinger. And I think Solinger was like a historic high school coach who hopped on to University of Miami staff. He was just big time recruiter and developer at the University of Miami. But it's so huge because I think some of the biggest plays, the opener versus Florida, taking it back. The opener versus NC State with Devin Hester, taking it back. DJ Williams in the 2002 game at Tallahassee, breaking up the middle for 60 yards on a fake punt. Of course, the Santana Moss, Kevin Williams back in the 90s, taking things back. The original slot receiver at Miami. Sonoris Moss, the other Moss brother. Sonoris with his punt and kick return prowess. Lamar Miller and Travis Benjamin making names for themselves under Coach Randy Shannon before they became full-time starters on special team, punt and kick return. And it's gone. And you know where it started at, Mark? 2013. Al Golden pulled starters off specials. He pulled Duke Johnson off special teams because he didn't want him to get hurt. It's just, and Mark Richt. And I also think what happens is you have to recruit that type of player too. You have to recruit a player who is that type of athlete in open space who can come in and influx that return game for you, because Devin Hester was the number one athlete in the country. That's why he came here and flourished. A guy like JT4, he had that potential. He showed a couple of flashes on specials, but the last couple of seasons, not really, man. Not really.
So I jotted down 4 either coaches or teams. Okay, first I'm going to go real quick to the NFL level, and I'm going to predate everybody here, and so nobody's going to be able to argue with me on this point, just because the Minnesota Vikings during the 70s were renowned for great special teams play. They actually blocked the first punt in a Super Bowl in the 77 Super Bowl. Fred McNeil, Matt Blair block in the return off Ray Guy. Anyway, I could go on and on with Super Bowl history, but anyway, we'll bring it down back to the collegiate level here. None of these examples, so nobody jump on me, am I claiming in any way were as consistently excellent or explosive as Miami. But I came up with 4 little niches of excellence in special teams play. One is going to be Urban Meyer was always a stickler for special teams, always coming out with like crazy measurements of always measuring punting angles and all this other stuff. So he was always, I'm just mentioning little nuances from different places. LSU didn't necessarily have great special teams, but Les Miles was always cooking up some crazy, flip behind the back and all that other business. Okay, they came to mind.
The Mad Hatter. They've also had some good ones with Maurice Claiborne, Patrick Peterson, and Tyrann Mathieu, and the only Honey Badger. For them to pop open, they had to have an influx of great scheming in the blocking area of special teams also. So I think LSU is a great point, a great pick.
I also came up with, one of the reasons why Bill Snyder was able to take a Kansas State program. Anybody who wants to look up Kansas State and see how much of a difference Bill Snyder made, and he never won a national championship. He's never going to get talked about as one of the greatest coaches of all time. But look at when he started at Kansas State. Go back the previous, I'm talking 20, 30 years. This is what you're going to find. 1-10, 2-9, 1-10, 1-10, 0-11. Never won anything until this guy showed up. One of the 2 ways he did it, junior college, he went the junior college route. He got older players and got good quickly. And number 2 is they played tremendous special teams at Kansas State, even with a lot lesser talented players, played airtight special teams. Jordy Nelson was a big standout on special teams for Kansas State as a punt returner. And then who else came to mind? Mark D'Antonio was another. Despite being a very traditional conservative coach, offensively, he liked to pull out trick plays on special teams.
Okay.
But those are just flashes, not like consistent excellence over decades and explosive players like you're talking about at Miami. But that's what I came up with.
I would say Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Love, Christian McCaffrey. I would also Oregon under Chip Kelly. They were big time in the return game.
Yeah.
With last name
D'Anthony Thomas.
I know
D'Anthony Thomas.
But the back that
LaMichael James.
LaMichael James. Because it was Blunt and James, and Blunt was the bell cow, and James would come and scat and the receiver
Yeah.
all type of stuff. And then after that, they got the Black Mamba and DeAnthony Thomas. So I think them two. Wisconsin, not necessarily in the way that the return game, but I watched them block so many punts and kicks, and they just had an attention to detail. In an institution that's very personal to me, we take special teams very seriously too. So we blocked the first extra point uh, in recent ball in a while. And if you love special teams, there is a highlight of it. When I say executed beautifully, Mark, beautifully. I mean, we lined up a D tackle back at linebacker. He times it up perfectly. With the two in linemen, they step outside, it opened up, and he just came flying through the middle. For some reason, usually you step in on field goal block, but these two, I guess, were doing man blocking, and they kind of stepped away, and it opened right up the middle, and he shot the gap and blocked the extra point, which helped us keep the lead, and we went on to win by a couple. But it was when the team was trying to fight back into the game, so it was a sight to see, because you know how hard we had been working on, and if we got that look against a certain personnel, we would call that type of special block. So it worked out really nice to see it. What a nice and beautiful thing it is to see a plan come together.
Unfortunately, with the rules changes when I say recent years, I'm talking about not the last 2 or 3. I'm talking about the last 20 years. Because of the rule changes, it makes it difficult for a coach to pull the trigger on punt block versus punt safe, because the risk of the penalty versus the odds that you're going to get there. But one of the most exciting plays in football, I think, is a blocked punt or field goal. I love seeing a blocked kick.
Man, and the beautiful and wild part about it on a blocked punt is that collective in the crowd. So the crowd who's excited, they go from the crowd is like, no, they go from like at the same time. It's really wild to see that. Another one that's really tough and demeaning is a muffed punt return. When you made a huge defensive stop, you're fighting back in a game, and they run under the ball and they muff the punt. It Mark, I was there in 2019. Yep. Miami versus Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeff Thomas had his worst game in his career. And it was on a national stage. And I think this fan base have not and probably will not ever forgive him for what he did and how he played in that game. Not that it matters. You know, he's moved on with his life, and hopefully he gets another shot at somebody's league and can pull his life together. But it was so demeaning. Then after that, he dropped the game leading touch. Mm-hmm.
That game, that team in 2019, I don't know that there was a team in the country as sporadic up and down as they were, because that Florida team turned out to be a really good team. They were clearly one of the 10 best teams in the country. They won a major bowl game. They were really good. And that game was razor thin. Like, that wasn't a game where, of course, there was a winner and a loser, but it wasn't like the winning team was definitely better than that was the type game that you came away from thinking, if they played tomorrow, I don't know, it's a coin flip. It was a coin flip. But that team then lost to FIU and Duke and Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech. So they could play that well, or they could, and they beat the division champ, Virginia, but then they lost all these other teams.
They also beat the previous in Pitt.
Yes, and they also beat Louisville, who had a big year.
It's
trounced them.
It's so sad. It's and that's why I say whenever we do put together, I'm gonna be excited to see a consistent back-to-back 10, back-to-back, you go 9 and then 11, because you do have bounce of ball games where it was razor thin, but the ball bounced your way, a key fumble or something kept you in the game, or a key strip sack helped you win. Those games do happen every single season. But man, the roller coaster that this program has taken its fans, this program has taken its alumni, this program has taken its donors over just the last two. If you just take 19 and 20, just the last two seasons, the question always remains, which Miami is going to show up? That's it. And are they going to play hard for 4 complete quarters?
So there were a ton of great questions in the chat. We've run out of time. So what you need to do is, I got Miami shows on all the time, but specifically with the Holsum one and Cam Underwood every week. So bring them on back here. And folks, if you love the live streams here with the Holsum one, what you need to do is go out on social media and let people know that we're here. We'll be back here next Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, because we should have a bigger crowd here. And anytime I can support Holsum one, I think you understand that I'm trying to build this business, so I'm not going to be jumping on any 3-hour live streams with you the whole way. But I try to jump on there for 10 or 15 minutes, hear what you're talking about, and support you over there. So check out the Holsum one's channel, of course. Lock it in there, subscribe, make sure you're there. And he's breaking down the X's and O's and giving great insight into Miami football. And I tried to write down everybody that took part in the super chat. But if I miss you, my apologies, because I usually keep a count, and I didn't this time. But Ronan, of course, Falcon ERX, Ryan Reese, Big Show, thank you so much for the super chat contributions. All right,
absolutely, Mark. Just on my departing words, thank you all so very much for being here. It's always a blessing to have you here as a part of hashtag Live Squad. And also, if you ever want to just swing by, I'm the Holsum One Holloway here on YouTube and on Twitter. I'm a pretty funny follow. I get pretty wild, buck wild. And we have some things coming up over the next 2 weeks in preparation for the NFL draft. We'll have film breakdowns on Bram Jordan, Jalen Phillips, a new Gregory Rousseau film breakdown, and also Quincy Roche. So those 4 players will be receiving film breakdowns on do's and don'ts, goods and bads for them moving forward, and also what team I predict them to go to, and also what team I would love to see them go to based on the schemes that they run at the given time. So a lot of that I've been working on, and it will be released over the next couple of weeks in preparation for the NFL draft. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all, and as always, go Canes.
There it is, the Holsum one. We will see everybody back here at 7 o'clock Eastern time with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So, Ronan, thank you so much for reminding me to let everyone know. We're back in 45 minutes to talk more Miami football. So bring your questions on back, and we've got Cam Underwood, State of the U, coming up here at 7 Eastern time. See you soon.